Hello and welcome to your weekly sports report. I'm your host, Anis Melham, the Phenom, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Sunny Big Man Diol.
and you've tuned in to the PGA and ATP Tour edition of the weekly sports report. Thanks for listening. We just want to start off today as the British Open, or the Open Championship, kicked off in Carnoustie, Scotland, and it's still a pretty competitive round after like one round of golf for everybody. Kevin Kisner is actually leading, shooting a 66, and he's 5 under par. And then in second place, you have Eric Van Rooyen, Tony Finau, and Xander Lombard. And then there's just a bunch of guys bunched up in fifth at 2 under par. You'll know Rory McIlroy as one of the guys that's bunched up in that at 2 under par rather. And then some of the guys that we spoke about earlier are some familiar names. Francesco Molinari, who was coming in hot, is in 18th place at 1 under par. Tiger Woods is even Steven at 32nd. And Justin Rose, Jordan Spieth, and Brooks Koepka are all tied at 1 over par. For tied, that's good for 50th. Phil Mickelson is at 2 over par at 72nd overall. And then Bubba Watson and Sergio Garcia, who we profiled a couple of weeks back, are both sitting at 4 over par. So, I mean, it's a pretty competitive tournament. It's still the first day. Anything can happen. Definitely has started off with a bang, but that's Carnoustie for you. It's a very tough course, and it's expected to just get more difficult in the next few days ahead. But let's talk about Kisner for a little bit. This guy put in an amazing performance on the first day, needing only 22 strokes on the green to earn that 5 under par. He hit the links in the 8th group and got 4 birdies and an eagle to earn first place. So he's actually killing it so far in the beginning of the Open Championship. Now, as with many other golf tournaments, when you tee off is actually just as important as how you tee off. With a real heat wave going through Scotland right now, some tee shots actually rolled for another 100 yards more than the initial landing. So a lot of guys ended up with really great shots if they had started earlier. But as the day wore on and course conditions worsened, so did the scores. And you could see that in the disparity of scores from the guys that started earlier versus those that started later on in the day. But not everybody who started off later on in the afternoon had a bad day. Tiger Woods actually started off pretty well. He had 2 birdies in his first four holes. Kind of got off to a bit of a blazing start there, but in the back 9, he dropped back down to even, and that's where he sat, as we mentioned earlier when we went through the different scores. While Woods isn't in the lead, he is within striking distance, as there's still 3 days left for him to catch up to. He was only 5 strokes off the lead. Anything can happen, as you know. I don't expect him to come back and win it. I think there's a lot of other guys that are very skilled and talented in this that can come back. Or maybe this is just Kevin Kisner's year. But who knows? We'll just have to find out. The tour conditions, as we mentioned, did also ruin the games, not just of Tiger Woods, but some of the other guys. Jordan Spieth had a great start and was 3 under par entering the 15th hole, but his game deteriorated in the last 3 holes with 2 bogeys and 1 double bogey, and he ended up finishing at 1 over par. So he's got a lot of work to do in order to catch Kisner, but if anyone can do it, Jordan Spieth is one of those guys with a legit shot at winning the whole thing. But expect Carnoustie to be Carnoustie. Tomorrow, the weather is set to deteriorate with a lot of wind and rain. This is what's caused fits for a lot of these golfers, like the pros at the British Open for years in the past, when it's been held. It's just caused fits for everybody, and they just haven't been able to get their game back. This is where a guy like Kisner can fall back, or one of these guys can just make a run because maybe they have a good day when everybody else has a bad day. The weather is supposed to get better tomorrow afternoon, though, so maybe it's the opposite of what happened today. The guys that start in the morning have a terrible day, and then the guys that come in the afternoon, maybe they're able to, jump back up and take the lead a little bit, or maybe do a little bit better and get back into the thick of things. One guy that we wanted to talk a little bit about was Johnny Vegas, just because he had a really difficult time. He actually ended up showing up in Scotland just 90 minutes before his tee time, and like it's something out of a movie what happened to this guy. He missed his visa renewal. He was some confusion at consulates, a crashed UPS system that stopped him from getting where he needed, which actually made him lose his clubs. He had to stop in Toronto, and he had to get a helicopter ride in order to make it to his tee time. It all started when Vegas realized that he messed up the dates on his visa, and then he realized that it had already expired, his travel visa to the UK. So he thought, okay, I can get another one in 24 hours. So he filed an application on Thursday morning, expecting it to arrive on Friday, but then it didn't. So he ended up spending the weekend trying to figure out what happened, and then realized that he applied for the wrong visa and had to apply all over again. So the proper forms were completed, and then he was hoping that he would get his visa on Tuesday morning via UPS. That would allow him to go to Scotland. But then, of course, UPS lost it, and he waited for hours and hours, and it turned out the UPS system crashed, halting all deliveries, and then he needed to wait another day to get his documentation. Finally, on Wednesday, he ended up getting his visa, and he was ready to go. But then from Houston, he ended up going to Toronto, and then from Toronto to Glasgow. And when he arrived in Glasgow, his agent got him a helicopter ride to get to Carnoustie, where he arrived Thursday morning, about 90 minutes prior to tee off. But his clubs were stuck in Toronto. His clubs have had a lot of good luck in Toronto, as he's won the last 2 RBC Canadian Opens, and that happened in Toronto. So maybe they just liked the 6, and they just wanted to stay there. But his caddy scrambled and was finally able to get a set put together. They weren't exactly the brand that he likes to use, but at least he had a set of clubs. And after 20 swings on the range, he made his tee time. But he's in tough. He ended up with 5 over par. He's 10 strokes off the lead, so it's kind of like he's out of it. But you know what? At least he's participating. At least he made it, and probably is going to have some stories to tell for years to come after this. The funny thing as well is we tweeted out a picture earlier of his caddy who looks like Ronald McDonald out there on the course. So if you end up watching this weekend and you see anyone whose caddy looks like a clown, that's Johnny Vegas. So let's move on to Wimbledon, where that crazy tournament finally came to end on Sunday with Novak Djokovic earning his 4th Wimbledon title, defeating Kevin Anderson in straight sets, 6-2, 6-2, 7-6 in a tiebreaker. Djokovic looks like after some injuries that he's probably back to form, but he's also getting a little bit up there in age. But hey, this is a guy who took the world by storm. He's earned a lot of majors. One of the best players in the history of the game. So I mean, it shouldn't have been. If someone had told you at the beginning of this that Djokovic was going to win it all, you probably wouldn't be too surprised. But he did defeat Kevin Anderson, who was something like a wonder kid. Coming back from match point in the quarterfinals against Roger Federer to come back and win it all in that game, and then played again what I thought was one of the best ever matches in any Wimbledon against Eisner, the American, winning in 5 sets in a thriller, 7-6, 6-7, 6-7, 6-4, 26-24. Like that last set was like 3 matches just by itself. It was insane. 6 hours and 36 minutes that match took. It was a marathon. And, let's just be honest. After 2 5 sets, especially this marathon game and the one that he had before against Federer, I'm not surprised Anderson went down to Djokovic. Djokovic had just a lot more in the tank than Anderson did. Djokovic, for his in his own right, defeated Rafael Nadal 6-4, 3-6, 7-6, 3-6, 10-8. So that also went to a tiebreaker in the 5th. but not quite the marathon that Anderson had against Eisner. Very thrilling tournament on both sides. In the women's, Angelique Kerber ended up winning and by defeating Serena Williams. 2 years after losing to Serena Williams with a title on the line at center court at Wimbledon, she came through. She was patient, she played steady, and she was pretty accurate. And, it seemed like Williams never really had much of a chance. I know we were hyping Williams up the last 3 weeks when this tournament was just beginning and through it. But at the end of it, looks like the German took the All England club by storm, winning her third major. So good for Angelique Kerber. She was sitting at 11th, the 11th seed when the tournament started. I'm pretty sure she'll be much higher going into the U.S. Open later on this year. Now, both Kerber and Williams entered their matches. Williams by defeating Georges of Germany in straight sets, and Kerber defeating Ostapenko of Latvia in straight sets. I mean, those weren't much of a match in either side, but good for the ladies there. They both did a tremendous job making it all the way to the final, especially Serena after being off for a year after having a baby. But I mean, never count Serena out. The next major, again, the U.S. Open, is on home soil. She'll be back in the States. And, I'm going to say I expect her to win that one, just like I expected her to win this one. Well, thanks for listening for this week. Next week, we'll be back to recap the rest of the PGA of the Open Championship. And tune in to your weekly sports report. Tweet at us at report_weekly. Follow us. Tell us you like our stuff. You don't.
Like, retweet, subscribe on YouTube.
Subscribe on YouTube as well.
That's how we know you guys like it, man.
Thanks for listening.